Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to the EduSite Network. Friends, today we are going to be taking up our previous topic wherein we talked about the Gupta period, and today we are going to talk about the transition in the post-Gupta period. And friends, to take up this topic further and to throw more light on the idea, we have with us in the studio subject expert Dr. Shankar Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of History, Hindu College, University of Delhi, and sir has been teaching history for a period of more than 15 years. And with this brief introduction, I welcome sir to the studio. Sir, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Urvashi. Good afternoon, viewers. Yesterday, we spoke about the details and the perspective with which we need to approach the Gupta period, which chronologically is situated, say, from around 320 Common Era to around the middle of the 6th century AD. And this period we spoke of yesterday is known for quite a few trends in the realm of, say, economy, society, polity, and also religion. And more critical than this period in terms of a telescopic view about India's past is what was to happen subsequent to the Gupta period. And when we say post-Gupta period, of course, we are trying to capture the changes in, say, economy, society, polity, religion, and different facets of everyday life, say from around the middle of 6th century Common Era to, say, the beginning of the early medieval times, which is located by the historians now somewhere around the middle of the 8th century Common Era. So it is this chronological bracket that we are talking about today. And as I said, that this is very critical to our understanding of the transformation that Indian history underwent, leading to the arrival of the medieval times. So, of course, medieval times have its own identity, so to say, in terms of decentralized polity, in terms of, say, preponderance of agriculture, shrinkage of town and trade and commercial activities. Then some historians speak of arrival of feudalism as a characterizing feature of the early medieval times. And of course, several changes in the realm of culture, religion, and so forth. So the point is that since medieval times have its own identity, and we yesterday spoke of Gupta period as some kind of a continuum to ancient times and the iconic Mauryan Empire, the centralized character of it, the pan-Indian presence of it, followed by the post-Mauryan times where we have smaller states and not so centralized pan-Indian kind of state is present there. And then subsequently in the Gupta period, we have some kind of a coming back of pan-Indian character of the empire, of course not matching to the extent of the Mauryas. Nevertheless, there is fair degree of pan-Indian presence of Gupta Empire, although the polity is somewhat plural in character. That is to say that while north of the Vindhyas, it is a more conventional kind of centralized polity in place, whereas south of Vindhyas, probably it was a different kind of polity with very loose strings to the center, and the local ruling dynasties perhaps were having a fair degree of autonomy with them. So that is the character, essential character of the Gupta period. And we shall today try to pick up these threads of the kind of new element in political administration that was probably experimented with during the Gupta period, and also the economic compulsions under which such kind of a polity is actually erected in this period. And it is in this context that we need to understand that this transition that we are talking of has roots in several economic changes, several social changes, and consequent to it, we have the political architecture recalibrating according to the needs and demands of the transformed society and the times that they were living in. So, it is broadly with this perspective that we would be trying to understand this process of transformation. A major work related to, of course, early medieval times is spoken of amongst the Indian historians, but as way back say 1950s and 60s as well. Even in the 1970s, they were talking of early medieval times in a very loose fashion. So, they would talk of the decentralized polity, they would talk of lack of pan-Indian empire, they would talk of several other traits associated with feudalism as such, but there was no specific, precise study which was carried out with reference to the actual data at the local level, at the regional level, which can be weaved together in order to present some kind of a model to understand this transformation. And that gap in historiography was plugged by the monumental work of R. S. Sharma, Indian Feudalism. Now, this work is essentially about land grants and the practice which was traditionally ordained in India, but it was limited to religious beneficiaries. But from the post-Gupta period, we find that there is not only preponderance of this land grant, but also the nature of the land grant had changed in the sense that now these land grants were made by the ruling strata to not only the religious beneficiaries or religious entities, for instance, say the Brahmanical bodies or the other religious bodies, say like Jain monasteries or Buddhist monks and monasteries and so forth, but also to secular agencies, that is non-religious agencies. And these non-religious agencies also included state officials. So, one inference that one can make is that now the state or the ruling stratum is giving land grants to state officials probably in lieu of their salary. And this situation, this kind of a crisis is triggered on account of the inability of the state to say pay regular salaries to its staff, to its officials, because there is some kind of a liquidity crisis, liquidity crunch as we call it in the contemporary times. And this liquidity crunch is probably in part associated with or is a consequence of the rupture in the long distance trade that had happened after the fall of the Roman Empire. So, the overseas trade which was flourishing in the post-Mauryan times and also in the Gupta times, leading to the fact that Gupta rulers were the maximum issuers of gold coins in India, which is symptomatic of high value transactions and therefore indicating towards flourishing luxury item trade or overseas trade, long distance trade as such. But what R. S. Sharma discovers in his work is that there is some kind of a progressive decline in the number of gold coins which were issued across centuries in the post-Gupta period. So, the number of gold coins which are unearthed through archaeological excavations and are stored in different archives, in different museums in India today, their number is progressively declining across centuries, say from 6th century, 7th century, 8th century, 9th century. If you take the data of the total number of gold coins unearthed from different sites in ancient India, there is a progressive decline. And this is associated with some kind of a progressive decline also in another high value transaction through the decreasing number of silver coins. And what becomes the norm in these times, in the post-Gupta times, is that there is preponderance of lesser metallic coins. So we have quite a few number of say copper coins, protein coins, or low metal coins, which again is symptomatic of course transactions, but at the regional and local levels. The thumb rule when we are talking of coinage, when we are talking of monetization and so forth, particularly in ancient times when these coins, when these currencies did not have extrinsic value as such, but they were intrinsic coins. So the value of the coin was embedded in the coin itself, in the content of the coin, in the metal of the coin itself. So if it is say coin of 10 rupee donation, I am using rupee example. This is not to say that this rupee was in circulation, but this is just for example for the sake of understanding. So if 1 rupee coin is there, then the value of 1 rupee is embedded in the metal that is carried by that coin itself. So that is what intrinsic coins are all about, and therefore what R.S. Sharma makes out is that there is less and less of high value transaction happening across centuries in the post-Gupta period, and this he links with the decline in trade and commerce, with foreign countries, with overseas trade and so forth. He also cites that Roman Empire, the iconic Roman Empire, had declined say by around 4th century AD, and subsequent to that perhaps there is a rupture of that long distance trade, and despite local transactions happening, that high value transaction quotient of the trade and commerce is gone, which leads to another historical process which he gleans through archaeological records, and that is deurbanization. So long distance trade is ruptured, and then we have deurbanization. Now this deurbanization here refers to the fact that all of us know that urban centers are actually defined with reference to the inhabitants engaged in non-agricultural pursuits, and if non-agricultural pursuits are shrinking on account of less and less monetization, on account of monetization getting shrunk, therefore they had to leave the urban centers and go back to their native places or to their village sites, and we have records of epigraphic records of such movements from urban centers of the professional classes who otherwise were either weavers or engaged in other artisanal activity or other service activities in the urban centers. They are increasingly going back to their rural areas, and therefore as a result of this shrinkage, there is the process of deurbanization, or in other ways we can also think of this process as the process of ruralization of economy. So more and more people who otherwise or in earlier times were living also in the urban centers are now coming back to the rural area. So there is more pressure on the rural land, which has to sustain on its own the entire population that otherwise in the previous times were also sustained by several other economic pursuits in the service sector, in the through artisanship, through masonry or whatever in the urban areas. This is the process of ruralization that R.S. Sharma is hinting at. So this is one proposition that he is making, and the evidence that he is citing which triggered this process is a separate issue that we shall be talking about. So let's first try and understand what kind of transformation we are talking of in the post-Gupta period. We are talking of transformation from an urban society to its binary opposite, that is ruralization of economy. We are also talking of a thriving overseas trade with high value transactions happening till the Gupta period, and in the post-Gupta period there is relative absence of at least long distance trade or high value transactions are missing in the post-Gupta period, leading to further ruralization of economy. So, now of course, there would be quite a few changes associated with these kind of structural changes happening in economy, and that we shall try to talk about separately. Let's first try and understand as to what could have led to this kind of a change, and in this R. S. Sharma offers two examples. Initially, he only spoke of land grants being made by the ruling stratum in the later Gupta and post-Gupta period, which was necessitated by shrinkage of coins or lack of liquidity or inability of the state to pay taxes on account of shrinkage of long distance trade. So, the state probably did not have enough liquid money to pay the salary to its staff, and hence they resorted to granting some portions of land to the officials in lieu of their service rendered to the state. And if we read the content of these copper plate charters, by which we actually know as to what was happening, of course, they don't overtly say that these grants are being made because the state is unable to pay them salaries. Of course, they are all ensconced in religious vocabulary and the traditional ways in which land grants were made. So, they would talk of that this act of theirs would lead to some kind of a merit, it will accrue merit to their forefathers, to the donors' forefathers, and so forth. But it also lists that the grants, the land grants which were made would now be immune from the interference by the royal officials, royal policemen, and so forth. Gradually, over centuries, we also discover that apart from the economic privileges or economic immunity, even jurisdiction and administrative immunities are granted to these donees. And that again tells us that state is further, the central component of the state is further getting weakened, and therefore these ways are being resorted to by the state just to give land grants in lieu of the salaries. So, very soon we find that these donees are also enjoying immunity in the administrative and juridical sense. So, this is something, and by the time we reach closer to the medieval times, we also find that mining rights, that is whatever is discovered as a resource beneath the earth, and maybe in future even that right is ceded to the donees, and that is understood by R. S. Sharma as further loosening of the central control, and hence some kind of leveraging of power by the local ruling authorities, local ruling powers, and that becomes the norm, and that is what triggers the onset of feudalism as such, which is antithetical to centralized notion of power, and there is no ulilinear vertical hierarchy through which power and decisions are made. Rather, they are more parcelized and they are more fluid. So, it all depends on the personal equation of the vassal with the suzerain, who is the authority at the center, but he is merely a ritual authority and so forth. So, there are quite a few other models through which these changes can be understood, but this is the causal factor that R.S. Sharma initially talks about. And by the time we reach 1980s, he also, because this proposition was subjected to the criticism within the Marxist scholars, who said that if a factor like external trade or overseas trade or long distance trade can bring about, they questioned this, the efficacy of external trade or overseas trade having triggered a fundamental crisis in economy, to the extent that the nature of the economy in a state itself got transformed. So, in response to this criticism, R.S. Sharma in the 1980s also started talking of another factor which was more internal to the Indian politics and Indian reality, and that was the Kali age crisis. If we look at the contemporary sources of the Gupta period and post-Gupta period, the Puranas, we find that not only in the Puranas but also in the other Brahmanical texts, this theme of Kali age crisis is repeatedly mentioned. Now, R.S. Sharma believes that this Kali age crisis, which stands for normlessness, which stands for say rupture of dharma and rupture of everything that was ordained from tradition or from past, to some kind of a real crisis of the state, in the sense that the lower orders, the tax paying section of the Indian population, noticeably the Vaishyas and the Shudras in Varna hierarchy, they probably are making it extremely difficult for the state to collect revenue. So, they are resisting tax collection from them by the center, and this results into paucity of enough resources by the center to pay taxes to its officials, and therefore, the same process is triggered, the land grants and so forth. So, what R.S. Sharma is doing here is that he is linking the external trade rupture with an internal argument, and that is Kali age crisis, and both leading to the same feature, and that is the increased instance of land grants, leading to parcelization of authority, leading to decentralized polity, and hence beginning of feudalism and ruralization and so forth. So, this is the basic premise. This is the not only the basic premise, but also two causal factors with reference to which R.S. Sharma tries to capture the transformation that he sees in the post-Gupta period. And in the earlier interaction that I had with you, I had referred to you, I had spoken to you about the evidence that we have of deurbanization, ruralization, and the smaller states and so forth. So, there is not much of a contest on this front by the historians. Of course, some historians do argue that there is no total absence of trade and commerce, and monetization is not that bad in shape as R.S. Sharma would make us look. But they are also by and large agreeing to the fact that the number of gold coins, the high value transactions, etc., are actually declining, and therefore these changes are triggered. But we have another set of historians who tend to view this change not as or not on account of the inability of the state to pay taxes, and therefore these local polities or these decentralization tendencies getting strengthened and so forth, as R. S. Sharma brings it out. So we have another set of historians who argue for a different perspective, who argue for the need of a different perspective to understand these changes. Now, that need of perspective or alternate perspective is best articulated in the writings of B.D. Chattopadhyay, who from the middle of the 1990s started talking of this alternate perspective which is required, and his proposition is arguing for some kind of a processual view of historical changes, and he looks at the process of state formation, and he says that the process of state formation is something which is experienced by different people or by different regions or by different localities in the Indian subcontinent at different points of time, and it depended on several tangents, historical tangents. So the basic precondition of state formation, for instance, the capacity of the area to generate enough material surplus which can allow anything like the apparatus of the state to come up on the local basis or at the local basis is something that needs to be mapped for the Indian subcontinent. And when we actually take up this exercise, we discover that this process is getting complete or is even triggered in different places at different points of time in Indian subcontinent. For instance, he says that the kind of changes that 6th century BC North India had experienced in the Gangetic plains, particularly in the upper and the middle Gangetic plains, the same had not replicated anywhere else across the Vindhyas down south. And whatever is happening, say, towards the turn of the Common Era, towards the beginning of the Common Era, that is around the Satavahan period, is something which is limited to the northern Deccan or western part of India. It is not getting replicated in southern part of India or the peninsular tip of Indian subcontinent. Then subsequently, say in the 4th, 5th, 6th century, 7th century AD, this is precisely the thing that is happening in peninsular India and in other parts of India. So the point that he is trying to make is that different parts of Indian subcontinent underwent the process of state formation at different times, at different there is one can do a chronology of this. And when these areas, different areas developed that capacity to generate material surplus on account of, say, advent of agriculture or intensification of agriculture. This is not to say that these people did not know agriculture from before, but of course there is intensivization of agricultural operations in these areas, or it could even come from intensification of trade contacts or overseas. For instance, in the Chol, Cher, Pandya, Satyaputra tribal chieftains, which is referred to in even Ashokan inscription, which are the bordering neighboring states of Ashokan empire, We do have evidence of very thriving Indo-Roman trade in operation, and we also know of the fact that these tribal chieftainships, despite not having a very developed market as such, because the most we can think of at around this stage is barter system being in place, and yet they had a twin capital system, one located inland and the other necessarily being a coastal settlement, and that was must or that could have been only in order to leverage the overseas trade that they were engaged in, and so the Roman trade, which was very much in operation around this time, that was also to an extent leveraged by these tribal chieftains. And all these changes could have led to some kind of a surplus formation in these areas, and over a period of time this asymmetry which might have crept in on account of availability of surplus could have led to social differentiation. So, what otherwise used to be by and large an egalitarian tribal setup, social setup, that social fabric was also ruptured, and a sense of hierarchy, a sense of asymmetry developed also with reference to one's social status, one's social position, and so forth, which is best represented in the process of transformation of a tribe into caste society, because caste society does rest on a vertically hierarchized division of labor and the ritual segregation, ritual status being also correspondingly associated with it in terms of purity, pollution, and so forth. So, all these factors are to be seen happening in different regions, in different areas, in different societies at different points of time. So, these are the historical tangents that we spoke of, and they are incident on different areas at different points of time, and it depended on quite a few factors. So, land grants could have been one, because in the land grants the religious bodies, or say set of Brahmins having received a land grant, moving to settle in a new area where agriculture is sporadically done, which is not intensive kind of agriculture, then they settling in this area and they being aware of intensive agriculture, being socialized with agrarian calendar, with the process of agriculture and so forth. So, they could have been the harbingers of introduction of intensive agriculture in these areas, and over a period of time, since they themselves were socialized to the Varna ideology, and therefore over a period of time the segregation that happened on account of iniquitous redistribution of surplus, or the social segregation hierarchization that we spoke of, spread of Varna ideology, and over a period of time across centuries the peasants got transformed into Varna based social order, and that is what facilitated emergence of a ruling stratum. Now, this ruling stratum that emerged in these areas were the ones who are reflected, who cast their presence in Indian history as forces, as ruling forces who have localized character. So, in the northern Deccan or central India, we get to see the Vakataks, we get to see in western India the Satvahans, the early Pallavas, Kadambas in Karnataka, and so forth. So, this is happening, the formation of the ruling stratum at the local level is something which is happening in different areas at different points of time. So, it is not only chronologically, but it is also spatially staggered. And when we view this transformation from the perspective offered by B.D. Chattopadhyay, of course, what comes out or what appears that the same transformation that R.S. Sharma is also talking about probably is not colored in some kind of a negative sense, that it is as a result of the, and this is what B.D. Chattopadhyay argues, that contrary to R.S. Sharma's perception that medieval times resulted on account of the breakdown of ancient Indian social matrix. So, whatever we get to see as smaller polities or shrinkage of trade and commerce, etc., they are presented as binary opposite of what constituted ancient in R.S. Sharma's portrayal of Indian history, ancient Indian history. So, these are the two major perspectives which are offered with reference to the post-Gupta period, where these transformations are happening. But what we discussed here is the fact that there are two different ways in which the same transformed scenario can be approached, and that is what we discussed with reference to R.S. Sharma's proposition and B.D. Chattopadhyay's proposition. What is distinctly true about the postmodern period is that the pan-Indian presence of a polity is not to be seen. Over a period of time, as we enter, say, 7th century, 8th century, 9th century period, we find regional states are becoming the order of the day. So, it is Gurjar Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, Palas in the east, and subsequently the imperial Cholas and so forth. But around 7th, 8th century, this is what is the order of the day, and there are, of course, several social and religious changes also happening, and the time will not permit me to delve into the changes in society and religion with reference to the changes that we spoke about, but in the next chance that I get to interact with you, I shall be talking about the transition to the medieval times or the early medieval times, where quite a few things that we discussed will again come for reference, because one can't understand the medieval times without referring to the causal factors which triggered it, and that will cover the cultural, religious and social aspect of the change as well. So, feudal model of R.S. Sharma and the processual model of B.D. Chattopadhyay would be spoken about again with a different perspective of understanding or making a sense of what constitutes early medieval times in Indian history and historiography, but that is something that I shall be taking up when I meet you next.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, of course, for that, and for letting us also know what we are going to talk about in the next lecture. And so, friends, today sir has discussed the transition in the post-Gupta period with reference to economy, society, polity and religion. So, friends, of course, as I also mentioned at the beginning, there is another lecture which we had before this, which you could also have a look at to trace again the transition from the Gupta to the post-Gupta period, and we take this further in our next lecture. So, thank you so much, sir, for that, and thank you, friends, for watching us. Have a wonderful day ahead.